Alright, welcome back to the channel everyone. So for today we're back on the pump. Hopefully if I'm lucky this might actually be the final video for this one. Might actually be able to get it working as well. So off camera I just built this little outhouse for it. So this is going to be the base down here. This is the back wall and this is just the, it's literally a gutter that I've just used as a cover just to help protect it from the elements a little bit, even though I'm using waterproof boxes. So what's going to go in here is the power supply and the control box for the pump itself. So they are here. So as you can see, I've got an enormously large box because I have an enormously large power supply, which I still need to look at seeing if I can find a smaller one. But for now, this is what I have to use. So that's going to go up in there. And then with its lid obviously. And then the other control box is going to sit up here as well. And so I'm going to have some holes punched down the bottom here, so this will protect it from the top, and the water obviously can't go upwards to get into there. So this will also just help it breathe. I don't think the power supply is going to be drawing too much power, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. And the same again obviously for this box. This one will be a little bit more exposed because it's just closer to the edge. So I might, yeah, actually that's a good idea, I might mount it sideways. Either way, I'll just end up with some holes down the bottom of these ones as well. So this one will be holding the control board and the speed unit, which I won't be changing because it's set to maximum, which is what I want. I'm not going to be using it to change the actual power that the pump's getting. That's just getting full throttle all the time. So all I've got to do is run a cable out of here into this one so that this can then get its power from the power supply, and then the secondary cable going from here up to my pump. So as I said in another video, I've got to put some silicone on this connector here because this will be outside and exposed to the elements. This bit's not a problem. It will be under a cover as well. I'm just going to use a bucket just to cover it all up, but I just need some outdoor sort of cable to run between these two boxes. So I've got some J-car wire here for that one, and I just found an old power cord that I'm going to use, so this one here, to run from this box to the pump outside. So just because it's got a bit of extra insulation material in it, so that it can handle just being outside in the elements a little bit better than this sort of cable. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. So first thing I've got to do is put this power supply in here. So it's going to be quick and easy because all I'm going to do is just double-sided tape this particular part to here, and then I'll still be able to get to the cables that have to go in here, and then they'll just come straight out the bottom underneath it. And then when the lid goes on with its waterproof and seal in it, that'll seal it all up. Then I've got to mount the other box here on top, and then get the cables coming out of it somehow. The other thing I'm doing with this control board is it comes with a heat sink. So the heat sink's supposed to go there, and then I've got to figure out how to mount it to the rest of the. Now I've got to figure out how to mount it to the box. So it's a bit of a worry because it's sitting on top of the actual connectors here. So I'm just going to make sure when I do stick it down that it doesn't actually contact anything, short anything out, because that'd be bad. And then I've got to figure out how I'm going to mount it inside the box. So I'm thinking, as I'm talking to you, that it'll probably go maybe up here somewhere, and then I'll screw it to the side of the box there. And I might do that at the sort of the bottom end of it, so that where the holes are for the cables to come through, it's all in the same spot, so that again stuff can't get inside it from the top. I'll just have to heat shrink this or seal it up somehow so that it doesn't touch anything if it moves around, which it shouldn't, but anyhow. Alright. So I'm going to drill the holes in this first, because once I put the power supply in, it's going to be a pain in the neck to get onto anything to actually be able to put screws and cables and stuff in. So first things first, we'll just grab a bit of this J-car cable that's got to go from the power supply to wherever the control box is going to be. So we'll just cut that off. Some colours would be helpful. Alright, so on the power supply we've got the 240 volts coming on this end, and then the power coming out on that end. So I might do 2 holes just to make it easier to separate the two. Now the other thing I'm going to do is just put some breather holes in, just to let some airflow at least come out. I can't put any in the top obviously, but at least it'll just give it some breathing. And the power supply is not going to be on all the time, so I'm only going to turn it on when I'm actually using it, because otherwise it'll just chew a lot of power for no good reason. Alright, we'll put these 2 cables through. Alright, that's the 240 in. And now we'll get the 80 volts in. Alright, as you can see, got the 240 volt cable in there and the 80 volt cable coming out of there. Got to feed that through the hole. Not going to work very well otherwise. Put those all the way through. Put some double-sided tape on the back of this. Right, got some double-sided tape on here. So we'll just peel that off and stick it in, and it'll no longer move again. Hopefully. I'm just going to see if I can get there's a couple of mounts down here, right down the bottom. You probably can't see them, or you might be able to see them down there. I can't quite see them on the camera because the screen's a bit small. I'm going to try and put just a screw in there, just to stop it from being able to move down. And obviously I don't want it to touch anything else, so I'll see if I can find something that will do that for me. Alright, so there's just a screw down there now, with a big nut on it, just to hold it in place if it tries to move. Now I'm just going to feed these cables back in a bit and put a cable tie on them to hold them in place. Just a cable tie to slow it down from being able to get out of the hole that's there. As you can see, the cable's just sitting in there quite nicely now. It's got a little bit of relief there, so it's not going to be putting too much pressure on the cables, and it can't just come out of the hole. Now same for the other one. Alright, that's that done. So this will get screwed to the back plate of the little cover thing. So there's holes in here so that it doesn't change the waterproofing of it. And then I've just got to figure out what I'm now going to do with this one. Alright, well let's put this heatsink on and then we'll just do the measurements and just make sure that nothing's touching anything that it shouldn't be touching. Hoping they didn't give me the wrong sort of heatsink to go with the unit. I wouldn't have thought so, but okay, that's good. It's not shorting against anything. Alright, so the only thing I've got to make sure of is that when I put this in here, that I can still get the cables around corners and out of the bottom of it. So I'm thinking what I might do is actually put it in the lid. So the challenge is, what I want to do is be able to bolt this board with its heatsink through here. I need some breathing holes in here, but then I also need to be able to get the cables out through the bottom here. I could put the holes straight through the bottom here into the lid of the other bit, but then there's too much risk of it getting direct ingress of water, because if any water gets on here, it's going to be able to get through where the double-sided tape and any bolts and all that sort of stuff are. So I think I'll still drop a hole out the bottom here. So just making sure that, number one, I guess that the cables will actually go through there, but then I can also get the connector on and off if I need to. So I might need to space it out a bit, because I'll need this space here to actually be able to pull the connector out. So yeah, that's going to be really tight still, because that's really close to the edge. Just kind of why I was thinking I might put it here. If I put it here, at least when it comes out, I can then get to the connector okay. The only problem is getting a bolt through the lid over to the heatsink. Actually, it won't matter, because if it's like that, then when I pull the lid off, the cable will just come with it, and I'll still put the cable through the bottom of this hole, through a hole in the bottom here, and then I'll just double-sided tape that to that. I'm still going to have to go up a little bit, because the edge of this connector here is going to be too close to that curve. It's not making it easy for me, is it? Alright, so after a bit of mucking around, I've decided I was going to look for some nuts and bolts to go into here, with the possibility of using square nuts in between the two heatsink pins here for when I screw it into here. Couldn't find any, so what I've decided I'm going to do is, I've got these are speaker connectors, so they go into your door trims, and then you screw the speaker into it. So I'm going to use those just to hold it together. I've also got these are actually wall plugs for drilling into concrete, but they'll use as a spacer so that I can actually space it off the edge there, and so that it's going to hold it there nice and tight, and so that it doesn't move. So now I just need to drill a couple of holes in the heatsink, and then drill some holes into the side of this plastic lid, and then see if I can put it together. Alright, we'll do the lid first, but actually mark where I'm going to drill the holes. That'd be the smart thing to do, otherwise I'll drill a random hole and it'll be nowhere near where it needs to be. I've marked the holes on the heatsink, so I'm now going to drill those. Alright, so with those drilled, should be able to put these in on the heatsink now. There's one. There's the other. So it looks like my spaces are a little bit too long, so I'll just trim those down a bit. Or maybe quickly see if I can find a longer screw. Alright, so I've got a longer screw, and that'll also allow me to put this rubber seal on as well. Might just help keep things a little bit better from the weather. That might be too long now. Can't win. Let's see what happens. Alright. Ended up being perfect. There we go. That'd be why it bent so it's bent the actual heatsink over a little bit, which is okay. The other ones ended up just stripping out a little bit. That's okay too, because it's holding it in there. It's not going to move anywhere. So now I'm just going to find somewhere for this to go. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll put that on that side, so that when it goes into the box, the connector's going to go up into here, and it'll be out of the way, and I won't touch anything on the. I'll put it in a spot where it's not going to touch anything on the board when the lid's on. So it'll end up being over here probably. Alright, so that lines it up quite nicely with over there, and then when I put the lid on, can't see it at all, which is good. So now all I've got to do is just throw it on the bench. Now I've just got to drill some holes down the bottom here for heat dissipation, and also to get the cables out. So again, I don't anticipate this getting very hot, but this board may get a little bit warm if I leave it running for too long, but we'll see. So now I need a couple of holes for my cables to go out of. So I think I'll bring one in here and the other one in here, just to keep them separated. So I'll run the power pretty much probably, actually I'll run the power probably in here, and then I'll run the cable for the actual motor along the back and then out that way. But I can't because the heatsink's in the way, of course. So maybe power over the top and out, and then the other one just straight out the side. So yeah, I can run one cable around there, and then the other cable can just go straight out the side. So I'll probably run the power one here because it's the shorter one, and the one for the motor can run the longer distance. Alright, so that's the holes drilled. So now I'll just put the wires in. So I think I need to put this one in so that I can actually mount it at the same time. So we'll just rearrange the bench. Alright, there's the power connector done. Alright, now I have my power cord for the motor. Now it's kind of going to be a bit wrong because it's going to use the standard 3-phase colouring, but I'm the only one who's going to see it, so I know what it's supposed to be. Alright, as you can see, that's all now hooked up. So now I've got the fun bit of actually plugging all this together and then hopefully getting the lid on. Just carefully pull all this towards myself. That's going to go around the back, that's going to come around the front. Lucky. There we go. Alright, I haven't put the seal on yet, so I've got to take it back apart and put the seal on. But I just want to sort of put it together and make sure it's going to run the way I want it to run first. So I'll just put a couple of screws in so that it doesn't go twang on me. Alright, there we go. So next, this all needs to sit on top of here. And again, I'll double-sided tape that on shortly, but I'm not going to do it just yet. So again, just a couple of screws just to hold everything together. Alright, next, back to the motor, and time to put cables onto the motor. Alright, again, as per last time, I had to take this back plate off to actually get to those connectors. And I'll just feed that cabling through the same hole as before. I can just go all the way down to the floor because it's just in the way at the moment. Alright, now we'll just remove the old ones off here. Alright, that's those three soldered on. Just put that cover back on. Alright, moment of truth part 1. Plug it in and see if it actually fires up. Which it has. You can actually hear it, the note changing as it's pushing the air through, sucking the air in from here, and you can feel it pushing out there. I don't know if this will work, but bear with me a second. You can see that's blowing the wood shavings off. So it's definitely pumping okay, which is good. Now I get to go and try it in the real world. So bear with me a second while I pack this stuff up and I'll get you outside and we'll see how it goes. Alright, as you can see, I'm all hooked up here. The water in the tank is a little bit disgusting because it's been sitting here for a while, but let's power it up and see what happens. Okay, so that's trying to push some water out at the moment. I've got the tap off right at this very second. Alright, I've just done a bit of a reset for the height. Sorry about the wind. Alright, I'll turn the tap on and flip it around and see how much water it's pumping. Right, as you can see, that's pumping quite nicely. It's definitely faster than it was when it was just the tank on its own. And yeah, that's still pumping, and that's over my head. So that's pretty good. So I'm happy with that. And that's cleared up pretty quickly. There doesn't seem to be too much sludge at the bottom. Alright. Alright, I'm back in the workshop. So I've just got two little things to sort out with this. There's a little bit of leaking happening around here, and there's leaking off where I've got the elbow because I couldn't quite tighten it up well enough, so I'll have to have just a bit of a fiddle with that, but that's okay. Everything else I'm very happy with. Alright, I always tend to struggle with getting a double-sided backing things off these. Alright, there we go, that's down. So I've now got the fun of taking this thing apart again to put the seal in. Maybe I should have put the seal on before I did the sticking down bit. Alright, that's one. Alright, that's one we've done. So now I've got to screw this to the actual to its little house. And then I can put the screws on the lid for this one as well. So I'll just find some screws for that. Right, time to bring up the other box to screw this into. Bring in its little home. And time to put some screws in. That's all the screws in. Now time for the seal. At least I can get to the seal on this one. Much easier. Alright. Alright, there we go. Alright, well that'll close this video out. Actually, that'll close this whole project out. Don't forget to let me know what you think of it in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for me, and I'll see you in the next one.